We have 10-1 Oklahoma taking on 10-1 Oklahoma State. This game is going to kick off 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on ABC. Oklahoma State is a 3.5-point favorite going into this game. Now, Oklahoma defeated Iowa State 28-21 last weekend, and Oklahoma State defeated Texas Tech 23-0. Now, when you look at Oklahoma State, you guys know that I have been high on the Cowboys all year. This is one of the best defenses in college football, and boy, did Oklahoma State put on a defensive showing last week against Texas Tech. Like, oh my goodness, like Texas Tech had to fight and crawl their way to gain even a yard. Like, that Oklahoma State defense has been on absolute fire for the whole entire season, and I believe that this is one of the 5 best defenses in college football. Like, everybody talks about how good Wisconsin's defense is, Georgia's defense, Iowa's defense, but Oklahoma State probably has the best defense in the Big 12. They have a lot of talent when it comes to their front seven. They have a phenomenal pass rush. And if you're an Oklahoma fan, you should be extremely concerned right now, because I feel like Oklahoma is playing some of the worst football at a time of the year where teams normally should be playing at their best. Like, the offense looks really out of sorts right now. Caleb Williams has struggled in his last 2 games. Last week, he went 8 of 18 for 87 pass yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, but he had 12 carries for 67 rushing yards and a touchdown against that Iowa State defense. And when I look at Caleb Williams, I think right now he's just going through a little bit of some growing pains, because one of my biggest questions before Oklahoma entered this tough 3-game stretch against Baylor, Iowa State, and Oklahoma State to close out the season, my biggest concern was, how good was Caleb Williams going to perform against some of the best competition that he's faced all year? And so far, he's kind of struggled in that department. And it's not all his fault. The offensive line has failed them. The run game kind of hasn't been there. Well, the run game for Oklahoma has pretty much been up and down all year. And the offensive line woes have been there all season as well. And now everything is starting to surface front and center, and I really am going to have a hard time seeing Oklahoma have much success offensively in this game against a really stingy Oklahoma State defense. But one thing that Oklahoma really does have going for them is their defense, which is something that you don't really say a lot. Normally, the offense is pretty good and the defense isn't all that great, but for Oklahoma, this defense, regardless of what the stats may indicate, this defense has been pretty solid for Oklahoma for the most part. Their defense has been a big reason why they are 10-1 right now, and they don't have 2 or maybe 3 losses in the loss column, because that West Virginia game that they played in a couple of weeks ago definitely could have went in West Virginia's favor, but the defense bailed them out in that game. The defense even bailed them out in that game against Baylor not too long ago. Like, there were a lot of opportunities where Baylor could have really took Oklahoma by the throat and really could have just delivered killing blow after killing blow, but Oklahoma's defense stayed strong and kept them in that game until eventually their defense started getting tired. They got winded, and Baylor was able to ground and pound them to finish the game off in the 4th quarter, but Oklahoma's defense kept them around in that game, and I kind of feel like not enough people are giving that OU defense enough credit. And I know the stats may show that the defense isn't all that great statistically, but sometimes, you actually have to watch the games instead of overly relying on the numbers. Now, Oklahoma State, we know what they want to do. We know what Oklahoma State is offensively. They want to run the football, led by running back Jaylen Warren. Jaylen Warren has been one of the more underrated and more of the most underappreciated backs in America this year. He has been the workhorse for Oklahoma State's offense all year. He has 1,078 rushing yards. He's averaging 4.9 yards per carry, and he has 10 touchdowns on the season. We know what Spencer Sanders is. Every single time I preview an Oklahoma State game, I pretty much ask the same question. How efficient is Spencer Sanders going to be? We know he can run with the football, but he's kind of inconsistent at times. When he gets cold, he gets extremely cold. And pretty much Oklahoma State has to find ways to win without overly relying on him to win the game for them through the air. They don't really have a lot of dynamic playmakers when it comes to wide receiver, but this Oklahoma State team knows what they are, okay? And that's something that Oklahoma kind of doesn't have, is identity. And I feel like at this point in the season, you got to have identity. And for Oklahoma, for that OU team, we don't really know what the identity is. We don't know if this is a team that is run first, pass first. We don't know if they're a better passing team than running team. Like, we don't really know what Oklahoma is. And that's the reason why OU is in the situation that they're in now, pretty much with less than a puncher's chance of making it into the college football playoffs, because this team hasn't really been able to find themselves. And earlier in the year, we gave them the benefit of a doubt. We made excuses for them because, you know, they are a well-coached team with Lincoln Riley. They have a lot of talent. So we just assumed that Oklahoma would be able to figure it out. But here we are going into the final week of the regular season in college football, and Oklahoma still hasn't figured it out. They still don't really have identity. So when I look at this Oklahoma State defense, man, this is the best defense that OU has played all year, and they've played some really tough defenses over the past month. You look at that Dave Aranda defense in Baylor, you look at that Iowa State defense, and now you're facing one of the best defenses in America in Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State is second in the country in points per game allowed. They're third in the country in yards per game allowed. They have one of the best run defenses in America, one of the best pass defenses in America. Like, they're pretty much top 10 in every statistical category on defense. And when you look at this OU team right now, man, like, if they're going to win this game, they're going to have to rely on their defense to make plays, rather that's forcing turnovers, forcing Oklahoma State to go 3 and out. And Oklahoma State definitely has a really good shot at winning this game, because you guys got to remember, like, Oklahoma State is a team that's okay with being in these tight one possession games. So I'm not expecting Oklahoma State to come into this game and impose their will on Oklahoma. I expect this game to be really close going into the fourth quarter, probably going to be probably only like a 3-point difference going into the fourth quarter. You know, I only expect Oklahoma to either be up or down by 3 points. So this game is going to be pretty much low scoring. I would be really surprised if we see a game in the high 30s, 40s. I would be extremely surprised if this game ended up being a shootout, because when you think about this rivalry, you normally think about a lot of points being scored, not a lot of defense being played. But I think we're going to be in for a pleasant surprise, because I think this game is going to be the complete opposite in terms of what we normally see out of this rivalry. I think it's going to be low scoring. It's going to be a defensive slugfest. It's going to be a struggle to gain a yard. Like, for Oklahoma, even though their offense has struggled over the last couple of weeks, like, one thing about it is that Oklahoma State's offense doesn't really have a lot of explosive playmakers, and on top of that, they struggle at times as well. So really, the question is, in terms of who's going to win this game, is which team's defense is going to put them in more situations for this offense, or for their offenses to put points on the board. Which defense is going to be able to force a turnover to get the ball back to their offense in great field position, and also which of these two teams' special teams is going to put their team in more manageable field position. So I think the special teams game is going to be really important in this matchup. And on top of that, also field position is also going to be really important, because when you have two teams that are kind of struggling on offense, and their defenses are going to have to try to will their teams to victories, normally most times field position is a really big deciding factor in determining the outcomes of these games. So I'm taking Oklahoma State to get the victory. I think they win this game 20-17 is going to be my final score prediction. And the reason why I got to take Oklahoma State is because OU's offense has struggled all this year to have success running the football, and they also have struggled in pass protection this year. So I'm not expecting Oklahoma to have a lot of big plays down the field. On top of that, you look at the struggles that Caleb Williams is having right now. On top of that, he has to go on the road in a very hostile road environment with Oklahoma State pretty much trying to be the last remaining hope for the Big 12 to get a team into the college football playoffs. This game also does have Big 12 conference championship implications. The winner of this game pretty much advances to the Big 12 championship game. So this is a big game with a lot on the line. We already know that. I'm going to have to take Oklahoma State because I just look at that Oklahoma State defense right now. They're playing some incredibly good football, and Oklahoma, on the other hand, is playing some of the worst football they may have been playing all season. Even though they were able to find a way to beat Iowa State, that offense right now looks like it's out of sorts, and I feel like that Oklahoma State defense is kind of going to be like a boa constrictor. They're just going to wrap themselves around Oklahoma State, and they're going to wear them down, and eventually I feel like Oklahoma State should be able to come out on top with the victory. I'm taking the Cowboys to get the win.